Hey, Civics scholars, I apologize that I'm not in class today. Um, I'm in the main office and around school doing some other jobs, duties, and responsibilities, but figured it would be easiest if we just had this video to walk you guys through the last couple slides from the notes sheet that we did the other day. But before we get going on that, just quickly, here are kind of what's going to be going on today. If you can look there, we aren't going to do an in the news like we normally do, even though something kind of big worldwide happened yesterday with Queen Elizabeth dying at the age of 96 over in Great Britain. She's been the queen there like forever. So I'm sure if you pop open the news, it's all over the place. And you can read about her life. Pretty astonishing woman. So that can be our in the news right there. That was our quick little section. Um, but I encourage you guys to read up on that a little bit if you get the chance, which you might today during class, because you might have a little bit of free time if you work diligently on some of the time or some of the homework that we've got listed here. Then I'm going to, in a few minutes here, go through the rest of that slideshow and the notes that we started doing on Wednesday. We'll wrap those things up. And then there's a little writing assignment that goes with it. So this first video, I'm going to walk you guys through that to get you there. Then you can take a short little break in the middle of class, stay in the room. You can get your cell phones out and check on some things, but you got to stay in the room for about 7 or 8 minutes here. And then I'll have another video ready to kind of explain the other pieces of your homework for the weekend. So here we go. I'm going to give you a minute here to open back up those notes. So if you go to those, get those notes open. I'm going to pop open that PowerPoint that I was going over the other day, and all of the classes got to a little different spot, but I think I'll start here because I'm pretty sure we all got to this point. If we got further, hey, this will just be a good little brief reminder or a brief overview of where we left off on Wednesday. So, hey, remember we were talking about the citizenship and rights and duties and responsibilities of citizens. So just maybe a quick review for us. Remember, rights, those are benefits that all citizens have, like protections that we have for the most part. Then we got into those duties. So those are things that are requirements of citizens, things that citizens must do. Like if you don't do those things and you're a citizen, you could get into some legal trouble with our government. And then the responsibilities piece there, those are more of expectations of citizens. It's not things that we have to do as citizens, but we're encouraged to do or just like it says, expected to do. All right, so the rights, I think we went through some of these as well, but again, this is a good little review over some of those things. So you've got all these rights if you're a citizen of the United States and many others, but these are basically all things in some of the amendments in the Constitution. Remember, we've got 27 of those amendments. You're not going to have to know all 27, but we are going to cover some of them much more in depth, especially a few of them that are on this list. More or less because they affect your lives and will start to affect your lives a ton as you're becoming the young adults that you are. And some of these things we'll really talk about how they affect high school students, because some of these rights that people have, like you could go over across the street to the Family Fair parking lot and do some things, yet you cross the street and come onto the Zeeland High School campus and you can't do some of those things. So you want to be aware of what those are. The first one on the list there, the right to vote. There have been a couple amendments that have been passed in our Constitution that have given specific people the right to vote throughout the course of our country's history. The right to free speech, right? That's part of the First Amendment, as we'll talk about later on this semester, where there are like 5 pieces to the First Amendment, and that's one of them, freedom of speech. That doesn't mean you can say anything anywhere, and your speech isn't just like what you speech. It's also things like what you wear. Like I've got a Hope College basketball shirt on right now that kind of tells people like that I support Hope College basketball, or things that you type and put on the internet or publish, or things that you even text. Like that's speech. The right to practice any religion, or you don't need to practice any religion at all. You might not be a religious person. You have the right to do any of that stuff in terms of religion for the most part. Again, there are always exceptions to the rules. Like you can't say you're worshiping your religion and you have human sacrifice. The government say, no, that's murder. You can't do that. The right to a fair trial. Like, we all want that. So if you're accused of a crime sometime, hopefully you're not ever accused of a crime. But if you were, you want to have like a process that treats you fairly so that you can best try to prove your innocence. The right to petition the government. So if you don't like something the government's doing, you have the right to basically write down on a piece of paper or in a letter or whatever, and get a bunch of people to sign it that are in support of what you're petitioning the government about, what you're unhappy with the government about, and then turn it into the government. And the government can't like punish you for doing that. You have the right to assemble, and assemble simply just meet as a group of people. As long as that group isn't doing anything violent within that assembly, you've got the right to meet and discuss issues and things like that. The next one, right to bear arms, right? That's a big one that's very contentious and debatable right now. It's the Second Amendment. And we'll always, when we're looking at the amendments, when we study them more in depth individually later on this year, we'll always kind of talk about, okay, so this thing was written back in 1789, and some of these rights were passed just then. Some of these amendments were. And back in 1789, things may have been a little different, or they were different than they are in the year 2022. So the right to bear arms back then, hey, what's the most powerful arm or weapon you could own in 1789? It was probably a musket or a rifle. Now we've got way stronger weapons. Like, can you have a nuclear bomb in your basement? Because that's an arm, that's a weapon. What are the limits on that? And we'll have some discussion about that and those kind of things this year. The right to be secure from unreasonable searches and seizures. We'll talk about some high school things that have happened with that, because if you're across the street in that Family Fair parking lot, like, the cops can't just go over there to you and search through your stuff. They can't open up your backpack and go searching through it unless they have a good reason to do so. But in schools, it might be a little bit different. Sometimes schools have been allowed to just go through kids' stuff because you're at school, and that's been deemed legal. Like, that's been deemed okay by our Supreme Court. Or like unreasonable searches and seizures. I don't want the cops to show up in my house tomorrow and just knock on the door and say, "Hey, Mr. C, we're going to come into your house." Like, no, you're not. You're not coming into my house. Although I don't think I have anything illegal in my house. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't. I still don't want them just to be able to waltz into my house and just start searching around. For you guys, many of you are going to be driving a car soon. And if you get pulled over by a police officer, you want to know your rights and whether they're allowed to just pull you out of the car and go searching through it. That's your property. That's your private property. Are they allowed to do that or not? Well, this amendment kind of protects you from that. The right to privacy in all things, or excuse me, in all matters in which the rights of others are not violated. And this deals with like your private stuff again, and that's considered your body sometimes too. Like, what can the government tell you or not to do with your body? Those have been some pretty hot items lately as well. So we'll talk about some of those things. Those are just a few of the rights that are in our Constitution that U.S. citizens have. All right, so let's dive a little deeper then with duties. What are these 5 things? And we've got actually 6 listed on here, that you must do as a citizen. Otherwise, you could get in some trouble. The first one there is obey the law. Obviously, we need to obey laws, right? If you don't obey laws, you get in trouble. The second one, defend the nation. Well, when would we have to defend the nation? Technically, I've done that. I've never served in the military, but and we're a little different than some countries. Some countries there's mandatory military service where every citizen has to, like, for 2 years be in the military. We don't necessarily have that, but what we do have, all men, when they turn 18 in our country, they have to register for what we call the selective service, or some people just know it as the draft. We haven't used the draft since, I believe, the Vietnam conflict back in the 60s and 70s, but that's just so that we're registered in case we ever have a big conflict and we don't have enough people in our military to serve that have like volunteered. or that are in the military, they have this draft system that we'll talk much more about that later on this year about how that actually works. You have to serve on a jury. If you don't know what a jury is, if there's like a court case, sorry, if there's this fly flying all over the place. I think I got, oh, there he is. Oh, well, I'll get him. If there's a court case, usually there's a group of people, just normal, everyday, average people, that are called to serve on the jury. And that group of people, they sit in the trial, they listen to all the arguments that are there to try to convict somebody or find them guilty of the crime. There's also obviously arguments to try to find that person innocent. And the jury, that group of people, listens to all those arguments. Then they go off and they talk, what we call, they deliberate, excuse me. And then they are the ones that decide whether that person is innocent or guilty. It's not a judge. The judge is actually there just to kind of make sure the whole court cases run smoothly. They're in charge of the court case. But that jury is there to decide a person's innocence or guilt. And how do you serve on that jury? It's a total random selection. Anybody that's a citizen is in like this big pool of people, and they randomly select people to call to serve on juries. And like I said, it's totally random. I've never been called to go serve on a jury, yet I've got some friends of mine that have been called like 4 or 5 different times. And you have to go do that if you're called. Now, again, there are exceptions, and there's a whole jury selection process that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be on the jury, but that's something you have to do. You also have to serve as a witness if you are asked to do so. So if there's a trial going on and one of the two sides wants you to come up and sit in front by the judge and answer questions as a witness, you have to do that, whether you want to or not. If you don't, see this word here, subpoena, the government's going to show up at your house and someone's going to have a subpoena there and say, hey, here it is. You must go appear in court. And we might be thinking, like, why wouldn't you do that? Some people don't want to serve as a witness because they're afraid that, one, it might show their guilt, or two, they might feel maybe threatened if they go up in front of court and say about whatever crime has been committed that they know about. For instance, if I was called as a witness because they think I witnessed like a murder, and I go up there and the lawyers ask, hey, Mr. C, did you witness that person committing the murder? You're not allowed to lie if you're or anytime that you're a witness in court. Because if you do, that's a felony itself. Like, I could get in some serious legal trouble if I lied as a witness. And let's just say I'm up there in front and they say, hey, Mr. C, did you witness, did you see that person over there committed the murder? And if I did, and I said yes, yet that person's family like was sitting out in the crowd during the court case, because anybody can go to any court case. Like, if you guys are ever bored one day, you can go sit in any court case and listen to it and watch it. But let's say that person's family was sitting out there and they were this mean group of people, and they had like called me on the phone like the week before, and they were like, if you go up there and you testify that you saw our family member commit that murder and they get in trouble, like, we're coming after you, or we're coming after your family. Like, to protect myself, I might not want to be that witness, but I have to go legally. Now, there's a protection to me. The Fifth Amendment in our Constitution says you never have to self-incriminate, which means you never have to basically put yourself in harm's way. I could say, well, I plead the Fifth Amendment, and that would be my answer to that question. And it's not a yes or a no. The next one down, pay taxes. You have to pay taxes once you start making a paycheck, a legal paycheck. I believe it's once you start to hit like $600 that you make, you have to start paying taxes. And if you don't, you're going to get in trouble with the government. And the last one there, you got to attend school. And it's until usually about till you're 16 years old. If you don't attend school, you might not get in any trouble, but your parents are going to. So go to school. You don't want your parents to get in trouble for you not attending school. Next, responsibilities. So these are things that you don't get in trouble for if you don't do them. But as a U.S. citizen, the government, I guess, in a sense, or just the society in the United States, kind of expects our citizens to do this. One is vote. You don't have to vote, but you're eligible to vote if you're a U.S. citizen once you turn the age of 18. The second one, holding government office. We obviously expect our citizens to do that. Now, not every citizen, but we expect some citizens to do that. When we talk about holding government offices, like you could be on the city council in Zealand, or you could be the mayor of Zealand, or you could go like the president. That's a government office. So there are all sorts of different levels of government offices. Participating in election campaigns. You might join a political campaign for an election, and you might simply go around handing out stickers or flyers to support a certain candidate or cause. Influence the government. That's kind of a responsibility of the citizens of the United States. That's our job. If we want our government to do certain things, we want to let our views be known to the government, and that would be our government officials. And then serving the community, doing community service work is something that's expected of our citizens, just to make our overall society and culture better in the United States. All right, then why do we have laws? We have laws first to protect all those rights that we have in the Constitution. We want to make sure that those are protected. Second, to promote peace and order. Obviously, if we want things to be peaceful, we want things out in public to be in order, people acting the right way, we got to have laws there to promote that to happen. To promote justice and equality. You hear people say, "Oh, we want justice to be served." Well, yes, we want justice to be served when someone does something wrong, or a business does something wrong, or a group of people does something wrong. We want to make sure that justice is served, that those people are held accountable for that. And we also have it for equality. We want to make sure that we want to do our best, and you can argue that we don't do a very good job of it, but that everybody is treated equally, and that certain groups of people aren't kind of put out to dry and are allowed to be discriminated against. We want to make sure that there are laws in place to stop that from happening. To settle disputes. So whether that's a dispute, like an argument between two people, maybe it's between a person and a company or an organization, maybe it's between two organizations. We want to make sure that we have a way to make sure that those disputes are settled. And then lastly, to address and solve problems. Maybe there's a problem with people driving too fast. So what do? We create speed limits. Maybe there are companies that are polluting too much into our air. Well, that's a problem. Creating unhealthy breathing and air. Well, then we make laws about how much pollution companies or big factories are allowed to emit or to send up into the air. Okay, we can skip this one here. So here's the assignment that you're going to have, and you're going to have 30 minutes to do this, to work on it in class. It's not due till Tuesday, but we want to give you some time here in class to work on this. So what it is, it's called a power, right? So it's power, it's fast, it's quick, it's strong. Pick a specific law that you disagree with, and then explain these three things about that law. 1, why do you disagree with this law? 2, what good things might happen if this law was removed? If we got rid of it, what good things might happen? And then the last part, what bad things, though, might happen if this law was removed? So again, if we got rid of this law, might there be some bad things that actually happen? So I want to go back and reiterate what we talked about the first week of school. Now that you guys are in high school, you're young adults, we're going to expect more of your writing. Okay, so 1, misspelled words, there really shouldn't be any. Because you got spell check and all those things to do that for you. Also, if you don't know how to spell a word, look it up. Just look it up in Google. So there's really no excuse for misspelled words. Remember, a sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with some punctuation. Okay? So the first one as well, why do you disagree with this law? Don't put, I disagree with this law because, or because I think it's bad. No, you'd say, I don't disagree with this law because blah, 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 and have 3 to 4 sentences. Really, with 100, 200 words, that's sort of a suggestion, and that's not that much. But I think probably 3 to 4 sentences for each one of these prompts So the same thing. So what good things could happen if this law was removed? 3 to 4 sentences about that, fully explaining it. And then for number 3, what bad things might happen if this law was removed? Another 3 to 4 sentences. And some examples of things that you could use, that kids have used in the past. The fact that in our country, you have to be at least 14 years old to work or to have like an official job. Now, maybe some of you aren't 14 and in the summers you mow 2 or 3 lawns in your neighborhood. Like that's not really an official job. But to be employed by like a business or a company and receive an official paycheck, you have to be at least 14 years old. Hey, we've got that law for a reason. Many reasons. Biggest one probably is because we want you in school, not necessarily working. We need you. We need our citizens to have a decent education. The next one down is kind of time has passed it now. This is probably an older one. Downloading free music is illegal. Well, it used to be somewhat. Now you guys can find ways to legally download music all over the place. The driving age being 16. Maybe you guys think that's too high. Maybe you would argue that it should be 14, or maybe you think it's too low. Maybe you think it should be 18. Must attend school until you're 16. Again, maybe you think that's too high. So maybe you don't think there should be an age limit, or it should be higher or lower. Local curfews. We sort of have a local curfew. Like I know when you turn 16 and have your driver's license, for that first year of having your driver's license, they call it like a probationary year. You're not supposed to drive past 10 p.m., I think, and then again until 5 a.m. There's that chunk of 7 hours there where you're not supposed to drive. You might not think that's fair. The drinking age being 21 years old. Hey, it wasn't all that long ago, although well before you guys were born. For a little bit of time, the drinking age was 18 years old. In many countries, it's much less. Lots of places around the world, it's like 16 years old, or they don't even have a drinking age. So maybe you think that's a law we should get rid of. Narcotics obviously are illegal. Maybe you think some shouldn't be illegal and some should be legal, or any other law that you think is like school appropriate to be writing about. So that's your assignment. You're going to have 30 minutes once I'm done with this video to be working on that today in class. Please work on that individually, quietly. If you want to go back to the cell phone caddy and get a playlist going and listen to some tunes while you're working on this, great. By all means, do so. What I would like you to do is do it on another document, though. Don't do it on your notes sheet. Open up a blank document, save it to your Google Drive, and then turn that thing into me when you're all done with it. If you finish up with it today, great, turn it into me today. But otherwise, this isn't due until Tuesday for you guys. Tuesday. If you do have questions about it, go ahead and ask one of the teachers in the room, or quick email me. I'm actually in the building. I'll be checking my email, so maybe I can pop over if I've got a few free minutes to clarify anything that needs to be clarified. Hopefully, that's a decent explanation for you. Again, the 100 to 200 words is just sort of a suggestion. Don't write like 5 pages on this. I don't want you guys to be doing that much work for this. Just quickly get your thoughts and ideas down on a sheet of paper and really dive into some rule or law that you disagree with. All right, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in about 37 minutes, because when you're done with the 30 minutes, you'll have a little bit of break in class, and then I'll pop open another video for you.